I'm soaring, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov, Kalish Commander-in-Chief of the dropped and the forces of Ukraine, General Valeriy Pond, speaking from the articles. I myself navigate about the meaning of Tilly and the results of the Russian-Ukrainian guilt, and so the offensive of fate. The general says to Prot, about which I'm going to guess and practically rock everything. On the most important for the power, the meaning of the political body, and understanding of what the power is respecting so far. And girlfriend, we are already Rick at a completely new type of guilt on the highest. And from the point of view, the adoration of the Russian Federation of Ukrainians is unbearable. And I will accept them in the ruins of places of power for Russia. But it is possible for him and Bilsh to be a wagon task below the Russian aggressive troops at the front, and Zakop new Ukrainian territories. Here I am to the politically guilty. Vladimir, laid down for Ukraine, denoting the preservation of Ukrainian statehood. And he clearly says that we are that Russia, those are the fault of Ukraine, and for everything. The Ukrainian territories are not often buried. So for Ukraine we are to blame, calling the collapse of the Russian Empire itself. And the pit chair is still about discounts for the enemies of Ukraine. The search is not binding. Ukraine cannot get the dissolution of the Russian Empire. And Russia cannot get a retinue of wine from the political map of the Ukrainian state. Yes, it is known in various forms, but it is possible to have the Osyazhny in the fire on the Russian-Ukrainian front of the blame for the humiliation of Russia's VD against Ukraine, not on new aggressive forms, tied from adoration of the ground for the mabit of the residual Ukrainian power. In the Ukrainian Kalishny Commander-in-Chief, I want to date that we are a politically intelligible Russian Empire. For rich Ukrainians, Neonan and I developed the processes of administrative territorial acute on the territory of the Kalishny Radian Union of the Russian Empire and the Russian Federation. In truth, the Russian Federation is a typical national power from the accrued. And the yaks already not the yak cannot swim into the domination of the Russian people. And there was no such Russian power, and not in the hours of the Russian Empire, and not in the hours of the Radian Union. Ethnic Russians have warehouses at a discount of the people brought to Moscow. It is known that it is also possible to have a view of the Russian Federation at a similar stage. And history at times of serious relaxation can have a kind of national why. Even before the Krizov Y conflicts on the territory of the Russian Federation itself, and before the displacement of those peoples, the yaks will namaga the territories of their national administrative Russia. Yaksia may be, and we know from the dossier this Chechen was still ending in Grozny. And despite the fact that the Chechen Sprats are extremely not jealous of the Ukrainian Sprats. However, I was absolutely bade to the Russians, and the Russian-Ukrainian guilt gave them an honest chance to get away from the peoples who live on the territory of the Russian Federation. They still spent a little bit on a theoretical alternative to the Russians outside the territory of the Russian Federation at Maybut. The Russian Empire is not the Russian Federation, but really the Kalishny-Radinsky Union itself, in its cordons of 1,990 perks. For the tag, Russia came to the creation of the so-called friendship drink on the fallow powers. Yaka became for her an instrument of control over the entire Slavic prostor. And it can be said that it is still important to be frequent on Russia, and to this day. And it wasn't the power I was trying to get out of control. Let's say Georgia will turn to the Russian sphere to swim in. And for today, Putin has charged his beard with wine for eviction and guilt for the Ukrainian territory. I have not yet gone into Ukraine to conquer, and it is possible for a long time Georgia has been turned to the Russian sphere. Ukraine does not see diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation. And such a rank can be seen on the Russian Empire itself. On the sphere itself, Russia will float into its peg colonies. Overestimate the full size of the Russian Empire at Maybit. And with what rank did the Russian Empire fall apart? And the real result of the Russian-Ukrainian guilt is that Ukraine is not going to save its sovereignty. Sleeps of the Russian sphere swim in and statues are often set. And adoring not Tilky, adore an ally, and all over the world. So, the Prime Minister of the Cleaning Service Viktor Orban clearly says that my Ukraine is overestimated as a buffer state. From the Russian Empire to Uzhgorod to Vladivostok, Maya Beauty is saved in the form of a sphere, floating into the Russian Federation. I'm still in Ukraine in dust. You're guilty. It's not just that I'm going to the power is going to go for and mean the Russian Empire, and it's obvious to the Russians that in such situations I'm going to spend and control over all of them, the Kalishny and Radian republics, and do what the Nichols did not do practically in their national history. They will create a national power and send Shyaks into mutual understanding from national meshes on the territory of the Russian Federation itself. And I can just become a road to serious rats and problems in Russia itself, and to rat problems in the Kalishny Radian republics. Pretend to be on my own Rini hotels for Russian refugees of different nationalities, and so will be rock and are in permanent rats. Ukraine and Kazakhstan are the best candidates for this and are developed. In order for my Ukraine to become a member of the European Union, NATO, and the mind of Ukraine, to adopt a comprehensive migration policy. The neighboring power has offensive problems. It is extremely even more urgent in the history of the Ukrainian people that heavy calculations before new ones are needed for wine to rise to the turn of Ukraine, to the Russian sphere. Our real steamships of Ukraine will sail to the far side, and permanent rats in the Russian Federation, still dictating to us novi. Have you tried rats? And Sema's theme is needed. Then we will feel a stopped shot from the Russian Gat and a volley of Russian missiles. Here are 20 yaks that can be infected from the article of General Valeriy, laid down by one of the most stormy, high-spirited and folding on Ukrainian lands. And you can tell him about the grandchildren from the participating Ukrainians, and I won't pass them, I've gone. And I've lost the independence of Ukraine. 20 Cobb friend Svit Ukraine Vilna. Dyakuyu. Inflate on the topic of the channel, on it on the social, on the channel in Patreon, all resources help to develop the sponsorship function of YouTube itself.